Okay, it appears we are up and running and live. A very good evening to you all from Dubai. It's Phil Pendlebury here, and I hope you're having a super mega large day. For those of you from the Middle East, Assalamu alaikum, mahaba, good to have you with us too. And I've also got my friend Terry here who's going to be moderating the chat throughout. It's a little bit complicated for me today because I'm going to be trying to do some kind of live audio and a few things that, although hopefully it'll be simple for you, a bit complicated for me, so Terry's going to keep an eye on that. So what we're doing today, Wavelab Cast 2. What is Wavelab Cast 2? It's basically Wavelab cut down and aimed at simplifying the process of making a podcast. Now, obviously today we're not going to do a massive, great big podcast. We can't do that. And I'm basically doing one while we're doing this. But I'm going to record some stuff, make some deliberate mistakes and show you how to fix it, show you how to get to the end result. Just in case you're not aware, Wavelab Pro, the mothership, as I like to call it, used for mastering, restoration, fixing errors in files, mastering tracks or full albums, compiling, everything. And Wavelab Cast is cut down from Wavelab Pro. However, there are some things in Wavelab Cast that don't exist at all in Wavelab Pro. And they're mainly things that are aimed at simplifying the process of getting your dialogue sounding nice, for example. So we'll get to that in a minute. Quick look at the notes. Yeah, so I'm going to keep things as simple as I can today. I'm not going to go into all the kind of fine detail and advanced features, but just the basic building blocks for putting a reasonable podcast together, or a decent podcast, hopefully. So I think that's about it. Let's get into it. I'm going to start from literally opening the welcome screen and we'll take it from there. All right, so I've just opened Wavelab Cast 2 and this is what you see. It's the introduction screen. I'm going to move this out of the way because the pretty lady is going to distract us. There's a lot of info here. Again, the point today is to get into it and keep it simple. So I'm going to try and avoid all the things that, but actually you will use, and they're much more advanced than what we're going to do today. So you can use this screen to set up your basic podcast if you wish. Personally, I don't use this now. And well, obviously I'll be using mainly Wavelab Pro, but when it comes to doing a simple podcast, this is really handy. So let's start from the top. We've got two options here. We've got podcasting, which kind of is the main point today, and audio editing, which will create, a different kind of project. And we've got the audio connections. These are all important. The microphone, as you can see at the moment, we're getting a signal here on the microphone. I hope you can see that. I'll try to zoom in. Let's turn my camera off so you can see the whole thing. And welcome to my desktop, by the way, which contains nothing but a TARDIS and a little work in process folder. You can see I'm getting a signal from the microphone. This is because I've got my mic set up ready to record, but I'm actually using my lav mic, which is on my shirt. That is not what we're using to record into Wavelab Cast. So first thing you want to do is just make sure that everything is set there. There's lots of checkboxes. Don't worry about that right now. The main thing is your audio device. I'm using my Fireface, and there's other options, but we're going to make sure that the audio device is set up. And we're going to also, you can open the control panel of your audio device. I've got mine set quite high, the latency, because I've been using it for Dolby Atmos. And I'm set my sample rate to default at 48K. Again, not super important. Then we'll have a look at the output, which would be speakers or headphones. And in fact, I'm going to put my headphones on now, so that I can hear what's going on. So again, this might look a little odd to you. I have got SBDIF coax as my output, and that is because I'm sending it through to OBS so that you guys can hear it. Normally you would probably have analog 1 and 2, but we'll look at that again when we get inside the application. And there's a little speaker button here that enables you to just make sure it's working.
Left channel, right channel.
A nice German voice. I'm not sure who that is. Might even be Philippe. Philippe Gauthier, the developer of Wavelab. Not sure who that is. But you can check to make sure you're getting audio by pressing that. So, all right, what we're going to do, let's just get straight into it. We're going to do a new podcasting project. So you've got some options here: host and guest, host and 2 guests, host and 3 guests, etc. Single mono track, single stereo track. I'm going to choose host and guest. Let's get the camera off because ready for the screen to open. And I'm going to click create. And actually, we're not going to use host and guest. We're only going to be hosts because I haven't got a guest. So first of all, we're going to find out where we want to put this. I have a dedicated place, Wavelab Projects WL Cast. So it's going to go in that folder. And I'm going to rename to Livestream WL Cast. So create, and there we have it. And that is what you will see when you first create a project. Now, there is another way of doing this, which would have been to just open a blank project or not save it. And then you can go up to the menu here and, of course, save as and so on. But we're going to go through it, from the basics. So the first thing I like to do is customize the screen a little bit. Now, you don't have to do this. But what I'm going to do is just move things around and then how I like it, and then tell you what we've got on the screen. So first thing I'm going to do, we've got the dockable system. So I'm going to move this to the right-hand side instead of the left. Let's just drag that over. We can have that nice and large so you can see it. And that way we've got the track names here and so on. So, and the other thing is the markers window, which we'll get to in a bit. So at the top here, we've got a few tabs. We've got the file browser. We've got the metadata, which we're not going to touch today. We've got markers, which we will be looking at, clips, and the spectroscope. Next to that, we've got the level meter. We've got video if you're using one, and history, which is kind of your undo, shows you what's going on that side. Here's the main window. There's ways of setting this up so that these tabs here look less complex because it only shows you what's relevant. For example, like bounce would disappear because we can't bounce anything yet. But I like to just leave it with everything on and keep it at that. So here's the main tracks. As you can see, it's created 2 tracks for us. And then on the right-hand side, we have the master section, which is the same as Wavelab, if you've ever seen that. And then the track inspector, which is kind of a similar thing to the master section, but it's for each individual track. And that's where we can apply some of these default things and additional plugins to each individual track, as opposed to the whole thing. So, and I like to move that just over there a little bit. Yeah, in fact, no, we won't do that. We won't do what I normally do. We'll just leave it as it is. All right, so that's pretty much the interface. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things that we can look at here. They're all pretty self-explanatory. Different kinds of fades, the envelopes, and various editing facilities. But we'll go into the kind of key ones once we start. So I think the only other thing that I think is quite nice and quite a good idea to do, bearing in mind, like I said, I'm skipping a lot of things here. We're going to just go basics. But one thing I think is really useful is to set up some of your favorite folders here. So as you can see at the bottom, I'll try to zoom in. I don't know if we can, Terry. Try to zoom in on that. You can see that I've got various things all set up and easy to do. So let's take one of these as an example. What should we use? Well, we've already got those there. Various presets. So I've selected that folder and I can just add it to the favorite folders list, and there it is. And that means we can get to it super quick, like this. Music, documents, Cubase projects, which I contain all my Nuendo stuff as well, and so on. All right, so camera back off and let's get into it. I would quickly just like to show you a couple of other things, actually. I think it's wise. Over here, we've got what you'll see is the File tab. And this is where you access your main settings for various things. So the global settings, again, not going to touch those right now. We don't need to worry. Shortcuts for setting up your key commands or whatever. Plugins, which lists all the plugins and so on that you're not going to use and what have you. But the main one here that we should have a quick look at is audio connections. So first of all, let's look at recording. You can actually name your individual ports. So you saw that I had all these random things, analog 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can name them. So I've got sphere left and sphere right. That's because my Townsend sphere has 2 inputs, left and right. And the SP diff is OBS in, and so on. So you can name them all. And then the outputs, you can do the same thing. Analog 1, analog 2 would be my main speakers. The others I haven't bothered with, the different speakers, different set of headphones, and then analog 7 and 8 being my main headphones, and of course SP diff going to OBS. So you can name those ports. It's handy to do so you don't get confused. And also, of course, the playback setting, you can adjust what we did when we were on that little intro screen if you want to. So, and of course you can save that as presets. So I've got various presets here, OBS one, which we're kind of using now, main monitors and the headphones. That's all I need at the moment. So I thought that would be kind of useful to show you. And like I said, a quick note about my microphone, in case you're not familiar. The Townsend Sphere, it's got 2 inputs, it's stereo. It records from the front and back at all times. And then you have a plug-in that you can put in which emulates other mics. So what I'm going to do today with my mic is actually just use one of the inputs, which will be the front, because that would be more like what you'll be using, a normal mic. Right, so, and as you can see, we click there and we go back to the main screen. We've got 2 tracks ready to go. So I think we're pretty much ready to start recording something. So let's go through a couple of things to do with the recording. First of all, I'm going to name this track Phil, and we'll keep that as guest, although like I said, it's unlikely we'll use that today. Let's talk a little bit about actually getting a decent recording. As you probably know, there's quite a number of different kinds of microphone. I don't know what you're using for your stuff. I like to use this lav mic, which is pinned to my shirt when I'm doing streams and recording for YouTube stuff, because it's just really convenient. I can move around, I can do things, I can even turn around and play the keyboard. I'll pick the guitar up. I haven't done that for a while on a stream, but it is possible. But most of you will have a dedicated mic of some kind, and we'll just bring this in. So there's the sphere that I have. And I've got a little pop shield on there, one at the front and actually one at the back, just to stop it from picking up kind of noises from the back. So I wanted to just quickly talk about technique. Now, again, most of you will know this. Let's go to the big camera actually for this, because just so that you can see, hopefully. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to try to put this to the side. So you'll probably know this. Maybe you don't, but you probably will. But your guests, if you have any, might have no clue at all about mic technique. So for me, it's one of those things, you see it on chat shows all the time, and it's really annoying, people pushing the mic up into the person's face. And when people are naturally talking, they kind of tend to drop their hands, and you have to push it back up again. And that's really annoying. And this is where boom mics come in, where you've got somebody holding it and following the person around, obviously used for movies and so on. But the key really, to keep it simple, without waffling on any more than I already am, is just try and keep a reasonable distance from the mic. So when I'm going to record into this, I'm going to kind of lean in about 6 inches away from the pop shield and try and keep that distance. Another reason why I like the lav for what I'm doing, because it's the same distance all the time. Do you need a script? Well, again, you will know if it's something like a documentary, then yeah, for sure. I wouldn't worry too much about scripting. It depends how natural you are at talking. As you can see with me, I'm quite a natural talker, but I do tend to waffle a bit, so sometimes a script would be good. But certainly if you've got questions and so on for a guest, and on top of that, rather than a script, maybe just a plan. And I have mine here. I have a game plan here, which is why I keep glancing down at my iPad. Talk about, okay, so yeah, I said earlier on that there's 2 types of kind of projects that you can do here. One would be the podcast with the montage, and one would be the individual wave files. And we're going to use both of those today, even though we're working in montage mode. Montage meaning multiple tracks, same as Wavelab Pro. Even though we're working in that format today, there will be a couple of times when I skip over to the main kind of wave file, just one file as opposed to individual ones. And that's about it, really, I think, on that side. Yeah, markers, I think, are important. You can see you've got a playhead here that moves around. And up here, we've got the markers window. And I actually like, again, this is another thing I like to do. I'll just drag it. Oops. Yeah, drag it. I don't want to dock it anywhere. I just want it to be kind of floating around, because I like to be able to see that, you know, while we're working. And I'll show you why when we get to actually recording. So that's it. So, okay, camera back on. I'll pull the mic in a second. And the first thing I've got what I've got here, I've just got on my phone the little intro on Steinberg's site about Wavelab Cast. So I'm going to attempt to read that. It's a bit small. But first, before we do that, I need to just make sure that we know what we're doing with the recording side, and make sure, of course, that it's working. And this is, again, something that comes up in my kind of little tips and tricks later on. But it's always do a little test. You know, I've been here since 2 hours ago before we started the stream, testing and making sure that the signals are working and so on and so forth. Right. So there's not much really to do with this. We've already got the mic input selected, which is analog mono 1. That's the front of my Townsend sphere. We've got a mute button, we've got a solo button, and we've got a way of adding effects. We're not going to do that right now, and I already showed you that. So let's just go back to the master section on that side. We've got the audio input selected, as mentioned. This is the all-important record enable button, and here we have monitor. Now, I don't want to switch that on today, because if I do switch that on, then you're going to hear this mic that's at the side of me, as well as my lav mic. And actually, generally, you don't really want to hear what you're recording while you're recording. You don't want to hear it straight back into your headphones. Some people might, but generally, I wouldn't say. This little button here, clever, that's the ducking button, and we'll get to that in a bit. Right, so I'm going to attempt to read this script. I'm going to make some deliberate mistakes. I'm not telling you which are the deliberate ones and which were actually the mistakes. And I'm also going to use one more little feature, which is the markers. So I'll just run a recording without recording anything. So camera off, and we're just going to hit the record ready button here. And I just want to, I'm not even going to say anything here specifically. I'm just going to show you a little trick, which is very handy. We can start recording using the button here, or we can use the asterisk. And you can see it's recording now. And if I lean into the mic, you can see that the WAV file's coming up. A handy little thing, which you'll see me doing when we actually start recording, is I've got the insert key here, which does this. And you can see that every time I press the insert key, we're getting a marker. And those markers, I've stopped recording now, those markers are really useful. You can move them around, but not only that, you can actually lock them to the track. You can have the selection snap to them. And they're just good for, camera back on, they're good for if you know you've made a mistake, or if there's a point that you want to edit, or a cough or so on. For instance, on here, I have a cough button on my OBS. So if I hold this, it'll mute. Now you can hear me again. We don't have that. So it's handy to have something similar that just gives you a heads up. All right, there was something there, especially if you imagine that you're recording an hour-long podcast. So you're really not going to have time to listen to it all, maybe. So those little things are really handy. So I think we're about ready to go. The markers window we've got here, I'm just going to delete or undo everything I've just done. And the only other thing left really is to make sure with the transport here that we have the cursor at the beginning, like so. And I think we can start. Yeah. So let's give this a go. So where's my script? Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to pull this mic in a little bit. Let's hope this works. This is a first actually for me with live streams, is actually talking to you and recording live while we're doing it. So don't forget, I'm going to make a couple of deliberate mistakes. I'm going to leave a couple of gaps. I'm going to read this in a certain style. And I've not actually read it before. So it's quite a good test, isn't it? I'll leave the camera on so you can see what's happening. Quick cough. Quick drink of water. Oops. Right, okay. So I've got the record ready button here, the track itself in record ready mode. I've got my finger hovering over the insert key to place some markers. Let's go. Okay. Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. All right, so not bad. I I forgot to put a marker in one of my mistakes here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to see here, let's just play this back. So we're going back to the beginning. Let's select an area. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Okay, not bad. One thing I note there is that my recording level of the mic is a little low, and that's because it's all set for singing. So obviously, and I'm one of those singers that I tend to sing quite loud. However, let's not worry about it, because one of my points really with this is, yeah, obviously you need to set your levels up. We do that you'll do it in your audio control panel that you have. So for example, here's mine. There's the sphere, and I've got it set at 30 at the moment. I should have probably pushed that up a little bit, but not to worry. But the main thing is, don't get it too high. And again, you'll see that if you're recording it too high, you'll see that your waves are all chopped off at the top, and we don't want that. Right, so we've got some dialogue. Perhaps we could just move on now. Actually, you know what? No, let's do one more thing, just to make this a little bit more interesting. Let's go back to this script and find the next paragraph, so that we've got two separate sections, so that we're not just dealing with one recorded audio file. And there's a reason for that, which we'll get to in a minute. I'm holding Control and I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And of course, there's controls for that down here as well, to zoom around if you want to. Most of these things have tooltips, so But let's just record a little bit of the next paragraph, not all of it. And yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'll make sure the cursor is where I want it. Make sure we're back in record ready. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts, excuse me. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video. See, that wasn't very good. Expect no less than the best audio and video. Uncompromising quality, intelligibility, clarity, and great content are mandatory. That'll do. Okay, so now we've got two files to work with. And we can get rid of the script, and we can actually get rid of my microphone for now. So, final thing really to point out, get the camera off, is if you had a guest, you would have your guest obviously recording on the other channel here. So you'd have them both running together. So let's move into some basic editing. Like I said, I've put those markers, and that's giving me a clue at the bits that we need to look at, especially when we're under pressure like this, where we're live. But you'll notice if I move, let's say I grab this clip here, which you do by just, there we go, down at the bottom. You'll notice if I move the clip, oh, that's a bit of a problem because the markers are still, at the original time point. And the whole point of these markers was to show me things that either went wrong or things that I need to look at. So what we can do is we can actually lock the markers. Content are mandatory. That'll do. So I'll show you what I mean. We'll just select them all. And you see this button here that says binding. Let's move that down at the middle. what we can do is bind all those markers to that particular clip. Like so. So now when I move the clip around, you'll see actually all of them moved because I should have bound those to the other clip, shouldn't I? So actually we should undo that. And we select only the ones that are on that particular clip. Really handy, takes a little bit of time, a little bit of messing around. Bind selected markers to start, and now we'll see that those markers move with that clip. And of course, if I do the same with these, whoops, 1, 2, 3, and then do the same thing, you'll see that they move. Oh, no, they didn't. What did I do wrong there? There, okay, that's it. So those markers now going to move with that clip, which you may find to be very useful. Right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of some of the really obvious bad stuff. So there was something here. Let's have a quick listen to that. We can actually do it like this.
If you record or other social media.
So that was a cough. We definitely know we're going to want to get rid of that. So it's really simple. We just select it and we press delete. And now what you've seen is that it's split that clip into two. And we could actually just pull it back out again and get the cough back. And another way of doing that, we'll go back. Another way of doing that would be to just put the cursor anywhere you like, press the S key, which will split the clip, and then just, get rid of the cough like that.
Vimeo or other social media. Vimeo or other social.
All right. So that's getting rid of basic stuff before we move on. Again, there's another one here.
Excuse me.
All right, sorry about that. So there we go. Delete, and that's it. Simple as that. Of course, you can zoom out and in and out quite a long way. Right, so something I like to do next is to get all these into one piece, even though it's still a mess and there's still a lot of editing to do, especially things so that we can, for example, we can normalize the audio and so on. And we do that, we just select, actually we can select all the clips, make sure that we can see them all. And we're going to go to the bounce, and this will just give us one audio file. And now we can do, other things with that. So, for example, if I can find it, we can go to edit source, and that should be the entire file now.
If you create video content, your perfect podcast and Audible. Today, subscribers to Perfect Podcast.
Yeah, okay. So that's the entire thing all bounced together. Next thing I'm going to do, we're going to look at loudness. So what we got here is the loudness normalizer. Again, not going to go into huge detail right now. There are some factory presets which are really kind of aimed at the final result, not individual, but handy to normalize to a degree. Don't go too far. Let's have a look and see how far. Yeah, that's perfect. You can see that it's just normalize the loudness. And the other thing being there, of course, if you keep that setting, then when you record something later on and use the same setting, the levels should be pretty much balanced. There's other things you can do there. You can actually just increase or decrease the gain. And of course you can do leveling, EB. Let's see what that does. Oh, it's even louder. So, but I don't want it that loud. We'll leave it like that. We also have the global analysis. And I'll show you how that works very quickly. You just quick click analyze, and that will give you an idea of the peaks and so on and so forth. Again, too much really to go into right now. Maybe we'll do another video on this. So, okay, so we've got our single audio file. What I want to do now really is try and get rid of all the silence, you know. Now, unfortunately, okay, we'll close that out and we'll say, yes, we do want to save it because now that's been brought back over to our montage. We don't want to move these markers now because this is all slightly changed. So let's just delete those. I'm not going to worry about markers anymore today. So let's see what we can do. There's lots of really obvious silences and there's lots of things we want to get rid of. Actually, there was one more thing. Yeah, no, we'll get to that in a minute. So unfortunately, we don't have any way to detect silences automatically. So we've got to look, you know, look for them. But you can see it quite clearly. So if let's just pick we don't even need this bit at the beginning.
Okay.
So we don't need that.
Wavelab Cast.
So there's a nice big silence there. So again, I could just delete.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit, and...
But actually, what if I want a bit more of a gap there, or a similar amount of gap? So I think what we do is we do split, and we just, yeah, you know, not the whole thing. And what we can do is just go there. Now, that's going to be the starting line, Wavelab Cast. Watch what happens when I move that. See how it moves? But imagine that I've got that set so the timing is just right. So let's have another listen and get it right.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit, and publish podcasts...
Now you might think that seemed like a bit of a long gap. But there's a reason for this, and we'll get to that in a bit, so just bear with me. So what I want to show you here is how we can move things in different ways. So like I said, you can see that if I move that, nothing else happens. So I put it back, and I like that gap.
Wavelab Cast.
Imagining some music.
If you record, edit, and publish podcasts...
Notice the P on publish, which I did deliberately, and there's a little click in between here. But back to the point. All right. So what I want is if I move that, I want this to move. I want everything to move together, and that's what we call ripple edit. Now you've got to be a bit careful with ripple edit because it can do some unpredictable things if you forget that it's on. But we'll put it on, so it's there. We put it on track, not global. We'll get to global in a bit. And now you'll see, if I move, you see, everything moves together. So, okay. The other thing we can do, let's find another piece of silence here. Yeah, why not? We'll use that. We'll use that. That's fine. So we'll select that, which I'm just literally clicking, dragging. We're going to go over to envelopes. Now you'll see that there's a line all the way through this at the moment. That's our little volume envelope. See, we can fade it, do a little fade in at the beginning. We can click to add other points and so on. But another thing we can do is select an area like that. We can go to envelope and we can go mute selection, and you can see that it draws that envelope right down to 0 for us. So let's have a listen to what we've got so far. Oh, and incidentally, of course, that does move with the selected parts. And another thing that's just occurred to me is somewhere here, I think it's down at the bottom, we can give it a nice color. There we go. And we can make it full, take up the full size of the screen as well. But actually not worried about that. Let's keep it like it is for the moment. So let's have a listen and we'll make some fixes with edits.
If you record, edit and publish podcasts,
So I'm going to get rid of that.
if you create video content for the like
Now let's see about the gap between that.
podcasts, if you create
Yeah, we'll give that a bit more of a gap. And notice again, while I'm moving, if we're in ripple edit mode, you'll notice that I can move this. It doesn't move the parts that were before it. So that's how ripple edit works. Okay, so where were we?
podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media,
All right, so what we need here,
Vimeo,
so we're going to literally cut all that there so that it lines up.
likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media.
Now, did you notice that there's a massive volume increase because that was another take, or it was not another take, but it was another attempt.
YouTube, Vimeo, or other social.
So what I'm going to do here is just draw in a couple of points, and then we'll pull down that intro, and we'll pull that down. Yeah, let's something like that. Let's have a listen.
Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social.
No, that's no good like that. We need to do it hard. Yeah. Just to even it out a little bit. Okay.
Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media.
Still a bit much.
Or if you record interviews,
And we'll leave that gap there. It's not bad.
Vimeo, or other social media. Or if you record
However, there is a breath there, which I don't like. So we'll get rid of that.
social media.
Yep.
Or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast.
Okay.
Worship.
Again, delete.
Such as worship, then Wavelab.
And that's too much. So we're going to move that one over a little bit.
Such as worship, then Wavelab Cast. Then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice.
And another nice plosive on perfect. So I'm going to drag that right across. Make sure the gap's reasonable.
Such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect.
And that actually needs to come up a little bit. Oops. So we'll just increase the level there.
Such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio.
All right, so it wasn't a great delivery, was it? But then we are live, so. Now, getting rid of all this, and what comes next?
Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts.
All right. And this one was the one that was when I had a frog in my throat. So we move there.
Revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video.
Oops.
See, that wasn't very good. Expect no less than the best audio and video. Uncompromising quality. Subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect.
So we can get rid of all that.
platforms expect no less than the best audio and video. Uncompromising quality.
Breath.
Uncompromising quality. Intelligibility. Audio and video. Uncompromising.
Yeah, a little bit of level adjustment. And again, the thing here is bear in mind that we are nowhere near done yet. I mean, this is the kind of part that takes time.
Uncompromising quality.
Oh, why? It was shouting there. It sounded like... Let's zoom in on that uncompromising. And just make sure that we've got that level down. All right.
Audio and video. Uncompromising quality.
So we're going to get rid of that with mute selection. Yeah.
In quality. Intelligibility.
There's a click there. And I still want to keep the delays, you know, the gaps. By the way, I've got loop on here. I tend to leave it on all the time because it's really handy if you're going over, you know,
intelligibility.
So you can actually, you know, listen to something over and over again until you find exactly what you're doing with it. So again, I'm going to mute that and yep.
Clarity and great content are mandatory. That'll do.
Okay, mandatory. And you can see I'm getting quiet there. That's not very good. Unfortunately, you know, I do quite a bit of voiceover work, but unfortunately trying to do it live while concentrating on everything, it's a little tricky, and you forget all the things that you've learned, you know. But then again, that's part of what we're doing, isn't it? So, okay, we've got the full thing now. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know, maybe we don't need to listen through it all. I don't think it's a minute long. It's going to bore you guys. But well, let's just go back to the beginning and have a quick listen from, you know.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social...
All right, that'll do. I think that gives us something, you know, to move forward with. So I think what I'm going to do, I will go back to what I said earlier. Now that I've got that, maybe I wouldn't at this point, but what I'm going to do, we'll select all of those. So all those individual clips we've now got selected. And once again, I'm going to bounce. So now we've got kind of a hard and fast file again that we can deal with. And if I select that, we can go to edit source, and there's just a couple of things I want to show you that we can do in edit source. Not going to use it, but just in case. So
audio.
So let's say the word audio is illegal in your country. I was going to actually use a swear word or something, but no, obviously for reasons I'm sure you can imagine. We've got a built-in bleep sensor. So here we go, audio. We don't like audio, so we're going to replace that with a bleep. And we'll use the default, and off you go. That's it. Apply and done.
For creating your perfect podcast. And
it's quite funny, isn't it, how a bleep sensor works, because when you hear that bleep, it makes you think there's something rude there. So although it's quite a harmless word, once you put a little bleep there, sometimes what people do is not bleep the whole word as well, so you still get the end of the word. Yeah.
Perfect audio.
You get the idea. Okay, so we don't need that in this particular case, but that is there in case you need it. The other thing we've got
for creating perfect audio
is the mute selection, which I think, you know, I think it's probably worth just mentioning that we can use that. So we can go through if there's any particularly bad parts where you know, those kind of things.
Cast and
There's one there. To be honest, you'll find that you don't need to go into this much detail unless it's a voiceover job where your voice is out on its own, like this is right now. It's not going to be a problem, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I think that's all on there. Mute selection generates silence. We have there as well. Let's find a bit there, a little bit here.
for
A breath, generate silence, and you can see that that just puts silence in. But the other thing with generate silence is that you can insert silence. Now, I don't want to do that, but you can if you need to. All right, so that's pretty much that dealt with. Save the file, and we're back to our montage again. So awesome. All right, so let's just go back to markers for a second, because I kind of went off the subject of the markers when we bounced the file. Let's turn the camera off so you can see it a little bit more clearly. So let's just put in a couple of markers. Let's put one there and one there. One on that little section at the end. So this is something I forgot to mention earlier on. If we're playing, obviously you've got the markers, the actual marker window, which I showed you earlier on, and that enables us to automate the playback.
YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media, or if you record interviews.
And what's nice there as well is that you get a pre-delay kind of thing. So it doesn't just start at the marker; it'll start a little bit before.
Or if you record interview or perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social uncompromising quality, intelligibility, clarity, and great content.
Yeah, so there's still quite a lot of things that need doing there, but I thought I should show you. We can also skip through the markers. Here we go. So if we press play,
Wavelab Cast, or if you record interviews, podcast, and uncompromising.
So markers are a good thing to take the time to do. Maybe not in so much as fine detail as I have, considering the length of the file, but they're a good thing to get into, good habit to get into. I think we'll move on because this is actually taking longer than I thought it would, because I keep getting tempted to go into more detail than I intended to. I've got to quickly show you as we're playing back. Of course, you've got the masters.
Wavelab Cast.
You've seen the meters going on here. There are other types of meters as well.
Media. Or if you record.
Really nice. And the master section is the overall output from everything. Again, we'll get back to that in a minute. So I showed you the track inspector. Let's just say that we're happy with what we've done so far, and I've got rid of all the bits and bats. We're never going to get rid of all the noise. I've got my AC on here, by the way, because it's so hot at the moment in Dubai. It's 37, 38 degrees. So the AC is on. There's background noise. We have other tools to deal with that, right? But what I want to do is concentrate on the actual speech. So let's move to the track inspector. And these are the things that come as part of Wavelab Cast. And you don't get these in Wavelab Pro. So we'll start from the top. And I'm just wondering now, because we're live, I'm wondering whether I should actually just drag this also into the center. I wouldn't normally, but I think you can see it better that way. We can get rid of marker window for now. And if we wanted to, we could always dock it back to where it was, like that. Drag it across, or we can choose somewhere else to dock it to. But let's just keep it roughly in the center, and let's have a listen. So the first thing we've got is de-hum. That's not going to do very much here.
If you record, edit, and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media,
Dehumming is as if you've got a noise from Earth or those kind of things. And of course, the 50 hertz and 60 hertz is relevant to your mains supply. So here in Dubai, it's the same as UK, which is 50 hertz. You can listen to what's being taken away.
Or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating.
Let's get the camera off, it's not distracting you. Denoiser, well, that's pretty much does what it says on the tin. Again, we'll have a listen and see how far we can go.
If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Actually, it's cleaned that up quite nicely. And then we have a de-esser. Let's have a listen. Is there some S's?
Vimeo or other social media.
There we go. Social media. It's not bad. Now you'll see where the loop thing comes in handy. So we'll loop around the S in social.
Other social.
In fact, that's going to really start to annoy you. All right, let's try that.
YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media.
Lovely. So it's, I mean, you know, it's got done what it says it's going to do. Now you've noticed that we've lost a little bit there because we used the denoiser and the de-esser. So this will give us a little bit of sparkle back.
Record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Cast is the perfect choice.
I'm just marking that. I'm just marking that P so I don't forget it. All right, so the voice exciter.
For creating perfect audio. Your perfect podcast.
And there's some more PPPs. I'll make sure they're marked. Do we need reverb? No. But again, it's there in case you need
If
it.
you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio.
Built in, very easy to deal with. Right, let's go and find our P's.
Is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio.
Because we've got EQ here. So what I'm going to do is low cut.
Is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio.
And of course, that is basically what you do to get rid of plosives, a low cut. If we don't want to use the actual low cut here, there's no controls for it, so it's either on or off. We could perhaps, let's find that other one. Where was it here?
Podcast, an audible revelation. Your perfect podcast. Your perfect podcast, 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 your perfect.
It's like torture, isn't it? But it is quite funny how when you're doing that kind of thing, I can, and I'm sure you guys will be the same. You can actually sit there and listen to that for 5 minutes while you're working on it, and somehow it doesn't get into your brain. When you're listening to somebody else doing it, like I am now, I know it's going to make you want to jump off your balcony or whatever. So we'll keep it short and simple.
Your perfect podcast.
Now, I think I actually preferred the low cut.
Your perfect podcast. Your perfect podcast. Your perfect.
Yeah, we'll leave it at low cut and maybe a little tiny bit of mid-range. So that's that. And then finally,
If you create
we can maximize the level. So let's have a go at that.
Create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media. Or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms.
So there you go. All right. So we've got the basic voice done. And I said, don't be put off by this, because I've gone into probably a little bit more detail than I should have. And if you've got an hour-long podcast, yeah, to be honest, what makes a good presentation is a lot of it is the editing. So be prepared to spend some time. You know, that's just the way it is. Let's add a stereo track, and we're going to find some music to put on there. So quickly, I have something on my desktop. Chuck that in, and it's done. Right. Okay, so a quick listen to the music. This is one of my own pieces, so it's cool to use. It's not finished, but there you go. So it's got quite a long intro. But I feel that that voice that I did, because it was a bit dreary, could probably do with... Yeah, so actually we'll take it from round about where it comes in. Let's have another quick listen. Ding, 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 ding. A little fade in. Right. So let's move that into place, and actually coincidentally, and that is a coincidence, but it's going to finish around about when the voice finishes, which is another thing to consider. I must finish this track. It's sounding really good. It's a few years old now. So, okay. Tips on placing music, or commonly known as a bed, not to be crossed with bed when you're using Dolby Atmos. It's a different kind of bed. First of all, let's take it right down. Let's put the voice back in. And of course, the other thing would be try not to use music that has a voice in it. Right, so let's get that balanced.
Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts,
Now, something to point out with music, it does bring the thing to life, as you can hear already, I'm sure, my very dodgy live voiceover suddenly comes to life. But please be very, very careful with the level. Something we have to help us with that. This sounds okay, but it's far too loud. And something we have to help us with that is the ducking facility, which is actually marvelous to have. So we can turn the ducker on and off here. We can choose the source of the ducker, which will be my voice, and we can edit how the ducker works. So I'll put that in the middle, and let's just leave it at the factory default and have a listen to this.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, If you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, or other social media, or if you record interviews or...
So you can hear where we get Wavelab Cast at the beginning.
Wavelab Cast. If you...
The music just starts to come back up, and then I start talking again. So you can have a play around with these. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this now. They all kind of make sense. Just have a fiddle around. That's, I think, my kind of standard. Let's have a quick listen.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video...
So do we want that to come in a little bit quicker? Maybe we do. We can adjust the fade in time here. Let's have a quick listen.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video. Uncompromising quality, intelligibility, clarity, and great content are mandatory. A little bit. Let's just swing that whole thing over. I think you can get the idea from this. Sorry, I've left my camera on again, so you've not been able to see. I think you can get the idea. We can fiddle about, we can get that music to just sit nicely and it will automatically disappear. Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts...
Yeah, so it's getting a bit monotonous, so what I do is I put a split there and move that over a bit. Probably too much.
Audio. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video. Uncompromising quality.
Let's just leave it there.
No less than the best audio and video.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to move this timing of this.
Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video.
All right, that'll do. Okay, so a couple of things before we finish off. I'm going to put an intro and an outro on, and I forgot to show you this. I just realized, yeah, you can double click there and make the whole thing, all the relevant part quite large. I've just got so used to having it here and a very big screen in front of me. So intro music, I'll just use my here it is, EC logo. I'll just use that. So we need a new stereo track. I'm going to pull in the audio from the start and the audio from the end. That's actually a video, but we're not worrying about that right now. So, of course, this is what I was saying, where you need to remember to turn ripple off. So that's there. Now we're going to select these parts, move them all across until about there. We'll just adjust the level on this, and then on this one the outro, we'll move that up to where it ends. We'll adjust the level on the music, so it's going to go away. And let's have a quick listen.
Wavelab Cast. If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social media, or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than the best audio and video.
Not bad, you know, under the pressures of live. Again, this end one needed to come down a little bit, or it's probably the actual voices that, you know, the whole thing needed to come up, which brings me to the final stage, really. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, we've got individual track controls here. So even the music, I could have treated it,
If you create video content,
but we didn't. We don't need to do that. But all this section here, the track inspector, is all aimed at each individual track. We do have a master section, which is for everything. So what you'd want to do, I would imagine here, would be, I think we've got the Steinberg brick wall limiter. I mean, obviously you guys have probably got others, as have I, but I wanted to stay with strictly Steinberg today. So we'll just put a limiter over the entire thing.
or if you record interviews or small groups of people in areas such as worship, then Wavelab Cast is the perfect choice for creating perfect audio. Your perfect podcast, an audible revelation. Today, subscribers to podcasts and social media platforms expect no less than...
Didn't really need it, did it? Because I've got my levels quite nicely controlled there. So what we could do is put before the limiter, we could, have we got a maximizer? Yeah, no, not to worry. I think there is one, but not to worry. We could have done a loudness maximization there, but we'll do that in a second. We'll do it with the rendering. So all we've got to do now is export our finished podcast. And very simple. We've got everything selected. We've checked our levels. We've done whatever we needed to do. We just need to go to render. And we're going to say whole montage, live stream with cast. We're going to pick a folder. We'll say source folder. Yeah. And we'll make it a WAV file. You've got a few choices there, but we're going to go with 24-bit WAV and open resulting file, bypass the master section after we've finished and click start. Wow, that was quite quick. So let's see.
Wavelab Cast.
Probably would have had the voice Wavelab Cast before the music started, but hey.
If you record, edit and publish podcasts, if you create video content for the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo or other social media.
So now we've got that, we can do what I said earlier, which was we can go to loudness, we can go to, let's choose one of the factory presets, let's say YouTube. And now, sorry guys, it's probably going to blow your head off here.
Or if you record interviews.
You get the idea. So we've got that at an optimum level now. I actually wouldn't have done that, I don't think. I would have maybe just increased it by a few dB. That's almost it. The only other thing that's left is you can actually use Cast to automatically upload to these various podcast places. I think most people would probably do that manually though, huh? You know, but you can do it. And the other thing that's nice is you can also get it to automatically create chapters for you for YouTube. Again, we skipped that today. We skipped a lot of stuff today, didn't we? And we still ended up going on far too long. So I think we're pretty much there. I just want to quickly go back to main camera before I say bye-bye. Thanks for sticking around, those of you that have, by the way. So let's get back to camera. We'll turn that one off. And yeah. So that was like a scratch of the surface of Wavelab Cast. I hope you saw how easy it was. Maybe it seemed a little bit more difficult because of the fact that we're live. So I just wanted to add to the end a couple of my own little personal tips. So I hope you don't mind. So number one, don't panic. You've seen me, you know, when things go wrong. And again, if you're used to doing things live, you'll know what I mean. You can't panic. It just, you know, and people know. Even when they can't see you, they can hear it in your voice. So next one is stay hydrated. You'll see I've got my big glass of water here. Excuse me. And something you probably noticed on there was there were a few what we call mouth noises. And they sound like water, but actually they get worse when you are dry, when your mouth's dry, because it's the sound of your tongue and your cheeks sort of sticking together and your teeth clattering. So try to stay hydrated. However, be careful with coffee, because you know what coffee does. It's forgotten the word for it, makes you want to go to the bathroom. And aside from that, what happened just before I started this stream was I swung my mic round and the bit sticking out of the other end there decided to knock my coffee cup all over the desk. And the stream was just about to start, so I did have a panic. I've been doing this without my mouse mat because it's all soaking wet, covered in coffee. So yeah, watch it with the coffee. People have asked about presentation. Well, again, people have said that my style is, some people like it, some people don't, but basically just be yourself. You know, there's no point in trying to pretend, I don't think, unless you're a very good actor. See, some people say, just imagine that you're talking to a friend, which, you know, I do. I've got Terry over here anyway, but even when I'm doing stuff and there's nobody around, I'm just imagining that I'm talking to a friend of mine. Be careful with the mic placement, like we mentioned earlier, and check for sound issues before going for the full Monty. So in other words, record a bit, play it back, record a bit of that, play it back, make sure that, you know, things are working like you're supposed to. You don't want to spend 5 minutes doing the script read or whatever, say to yourself, "Whoa, that was an amazing take," and then, oh, didn't record anything. And I've done it recently with this particular mic. It had some interference and I recorded a whole 30-minute section. And there was no way around it. It wasn't something you could get out of with any of the clever tools that we have. Another thing would be record for the edit. I guess this is more video, but even so, it's kind of one of those things that goes along with the marker positioning that I mentioned earlier. When you're recording, think about, at that time, think about how you might edit it together. Obviously, you're not going to think about it all the time, but when I'm doing this, I'm going to, oh yeah, right, and then the next bit, marker. And just think about how you're going to edit things together while you're actually in the throes of recording. You know, try to think about how you're going to edit it while you're recording. Make a game plan. Obvious, I suppose. If you've not got a script, it's handy to have notes. I've got notes here, and even these notes are actually too much for what we're doing. Ideally, I would just have this, do this, say this, do this. And what happens to me a lot is I've made slightly more detailed notes than I should have, and I end up going on too much. So you can learn from some of my mistakes there. And think about it. What's the worst that can happen? Especially if it's a podcast and it's not live. If it's a podcast, what's the worst that can happen is, well, you might have to do it again. That's the worst case, I would imagine. The worst case would be you might have to do some again. So try and keep things consistent, levels, positioning, like we mentioned earlier on. And that way, if you do have to do it again, you're going to be able to slot things in and out. And you can see I made some mistakes with that earlier on. We could have cleared that up much better, the different volume levels and all that. But that's probably for another video. I think Carlos is doing a more advanced version of this. I'm not sure if that'll be in Spanish though. And of course, the main thing is enjoy it, right? I mean, what's the point in doing it? Otherwise, it's work, but we're doing this kind of work because we enjoy it, right? So, yeah, I think we're there, guys. Once again, thanks a lot. I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer anything specific. You know the routine. Any questions that I've not been able to, pass over while we've been running, just put them down in the comments and I'll answer every question. I always do so far. Drop us a line. It'd be great to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Do you think, we should do more of this kind of thing? Or do you think I should speed it up? Do you think I should go into more detail or less detail? Bearing in mind that this is live. It's completely different from doing a pre-recorded video where we have, right, how do you do this, this, So that's it, guys. Thanks ever so much indeed. Feel free to drop us a quick thumbs up as well. And I hope I'll see you next month with some more interesting stuff. Cheers for now. Bye.